Welcome to Mile High Reefers. I'm Scott Anderson, and it's been a year since I added the Kessil A360x's to my 210-gallon reef tank. So today we're going to do a lighting update. I've made a few changes. We'll go over the lighting, we'll go over some of my settings, and I've made some changes. So today we're going to do a full-on lighting update. So the three primary lights on this tank are Kessil A360x's, which I've done a full review on, and it's linked down below. I'm not going to go into full details on how these lights work because I did that a year ago. I absolutely love them after having them for a year on this tank. When I first put the Kessils on my tank, they did amazing. I loved them. The coral responded really well. But it wasn't long after that my tank crashed. It had nothing to do with the lighting changes. Earlier in the year, I had pulled the biopellets off of my tank, nitrates shot up, algae exploded. It was terrible. I felt horrible because Kessil and Aquamedic USA had gotten me these three Kessil A360x's for a birthday sponsorship for my tank because Kessil and Aquamedic loved my tank and they wanted to show their product off on my tank. Unfortunately, my tank crashed and I really didn't do them justice at the time and I felt terrible about it. Well, now I've got a beautiful tank again. So let's go through. I'll show you what I'm loving about the Kessil, some of the changes I've made, and my full lighting setup. So on this tank, I have a total of 5 Kessils. I've got the 3 A360x's I was just talking about, which I absolutely love. And then I have 2 A160 Tuna blues, which I've just put on there as an experiment. So you got to see some wires hanging down and stuff. That's kind of what that's all about. And to mount the A160s, they're just up there with the gooseneck, which for now is fine, but I'll probably get like some sort of custom bracket if I decide I like it. And yeah, I like it. We'll talk about what these lights are doing because I think it's really cool. And then for T5s, I'm running the ATI True Blue and a mix of Aquamedic Reef blues. I really like the Aquamedic Reef blues, but as far as I know, they are no longer importing them into the United States. Unfortunately, T5s are just kind of an old tech that a lot of people aren't supporting anymore. But they look really good on the tank. So the idea behind this lighting is basically the Kessils kind of do what your old metal halides did, these A360x's. They're like what the metal halides did, and they provide a ton of power and spectrum, except now they have a lot more controllability. I've got lots of colors, I can change it on the fly, I've got dimming, I've got a controller to run all this, so it's like metal halides, but better. So lots of power, lots of coloration, lots of spectrum. And then the T5s are really there to provide kind of that fill lighting. They do a great job with spectrum, but what they're really for is to provide the fill lighting on the tank. So they help fill in all of those shadows. And then I've put these A160 Tuna blues on the end to kind of light up the side of the tank. So here's the tank with the T5s and the A360x's on, and it looks really good, but I struggle with shadowing on this side of the tank. The reality is I've had too much coral growth, so this big leather up here shadows everything out. This leather is starting to shadow everything out, and then on the other side of the tank, it's even worse. The Euphyllia is growing like mad, so everything down here is getting shadowed out. This coral here has changed from gold to green because it didn't have enough light. So I need more light. Everything here is grown out. It doesn't matter which light I have. Trying to get light to go down is never going to get it to go down and around. So what I've done is I've put the A160s on each side angled down to help fill in that lighting. And here's the tank with the A160s on, and everything is filled in much better. This rock that was low light with the Xenia is doing really well now. It's filling in. I think the Xenia is gonna grow like mad. But better yet is the Euphyllia. This frog spawn back here is really cool, but it's dying because of a lack of light. Now it has plenty of light because the light can actually get down to it. It's not trying to go straight down. It can actually curve to the side because of the angle of the light. It's not actually curving the light, it's just actually getting shined on. My cold hammer is looking gold again. I'm getting light down here again. So the reason I put those on wasn't about a lack of par, it was just straight up about filling in shadows caused by coral growth. What was really cool about hooking up the A160s is I'm able to utilize the controller for the A360x's. So the A360x's use a Type C connector, and the old A160s use that kind of headphone port type thing, right? So 3.5mm jack for your 0 to 10 volt. But I've got both on here, right? So we've got the K-Link, which is your Type C, and we have the 0 to 10 volt. So now this one controller controls both types of light. So I'm able to run my old A160s and the new 360x's off the same controller. Now it's not perfect because of the old style lights, right? So these 0 to 10 volt ports are great ports, but the old lights don't dim like the new lights do, so they're not as controllable. So when I do that morning ramp up for the lights, so when they start to come on, the A160s come on brighter sooner, so it's a little annoying. I've got some options to fix that. I can put them on their own channel in here and run them independently, or I can just run them manually right through the T5s, or I've even got the old controller if I want to really go old school and put the old controller up here. They're all options, but honestly right now I like the way it's working, and other than that bit of a ramp up in the morning, that's the only real problem I'm having with it, so I'm probably just gonna leave it like this. It doesn't really bug me. So you guys have been dying to see my lighting schedule. So at 9 a.m. I'm running just the violets. That's what I'm running for my moonlights. I know not everybody agrees with this way of doing it, but I absolutely love it. It gives it a really cool look. And then at 10 o'clock, so when the lights start coming on, they stay super blue, basically colors on 0, so that's all blue, and I just start ramping up the intensity. By 11 o'clock, we're bringing the intensity up, I'm pulling the violets back up, and I'm giving it a little bit of white. We're not going too crazy with white. A little white goes a long way, but I do love the way a tank looks under whites for part of the day. So here we go by 1:59, we're at 20%, which is more white than you might think, and then we've got the intensity at 100. And your violets at 100. So that's kind of that UV. I honestly think coral like UV. They've been growing in the ocean, they've adapted to it, the stuff down low. Violets, the stuff that holds on the longest. So I think they use that color quite a bit. I don't really have any proof of it, but that's my theory behind it all. At 6 o'clock, intensity still at 100, violets at 100, and then we're starting to bring the reds up. I'm bringing the reds up for one simple reason. It turns the tank purple, and I love the look of that. Not something that I would actually recommend people do for any other reason than aesthetic. So you can see 7 o'clock, it's starting to dial back, intensity's coming down, violets are still high, reds are high, because I loves me a purple looking tank. By 8 o'clock, everything's really dimming down, but I'm still pulling intensity down, highlight, lots of violet, lots of red, just to have that purple look in the tank. And then 9 o'clock, lights go off completely. Now this probably sounds like a really long lighting schedule, but remember, we're only at full par for a relatively short period of time. As you can see from the graph, we're only at full par for a real short period of time, and then the rest is kind of a ramp up, ramp down period. I run the reds not because it's good for the coral, but because I personally like the look in the tank. And then as far as the T5s go, they come on about 11 and go off about 5. So they're on the tank for about 6 hours. They're primarily there for fill light, but they're also good for spectrum. So overall, I am loving this light setup. The mix of the two different types of Kessils is pretty cool. It's not ideal having the older lights up there, but considering that I already had them, they were free, I've got them kind of temporarily mounted with goosenecks. I think I'm looking at a little more permanent mounting and some wire routing. It looks really good, and the lighting I'm getting with it is amazing. And the A360Xs have been fantastic, and of course T5s are just old, tried and true technology. So for me, this is pretty close to the ultimate lighting you could have on a tank. Now, what could I do to make this better? Well, I think if we threw some of those new AP9Xs on here, imagine 3 AP9Xs on here, and then you take the A360Xs and set it up to fill in those holes, it's complete overkill. It's more than I would ever need, but it is just so cool. Honestly, these days, most lights are gonna get you the par you need. So par isn't such a big deal. Spectrum is usually pretty easy to get if you set your lights right, but even me, I throw the reds in there even though I know they're not helping any of it, just because I like that purple look. For me, it's all about fill. It's about getting the light where I need it. I can get plenty of intensity. Now it's just about filling in all of those dead holes, and then as the coral starts to grow and grow over each other, it's about lighting as many shadows as possible. So I love this setup. It's working amazingly. I'm super happy with it. And other than just throwing money at it, there's nothing I would change. I'm really happy with it. So thank you for watching this episode of Mile High Reefers. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.